Hello, good morning or afternoon or evening, actually, I guess, depending on when you're watching this week's frequently asked question, which today is, what is a deed of variation? It's a really interesting question. Not many people know about what a deed of variation is. There's a little piece of law and legislation that we have in the UK, which effectively allows us to change someone's will after they've died. Now, why would we want to change someone's will after they've died by a deed of variation? Well, quite commonly, the most typical use of a deed of variation is actually where you've been left some money, but you don't need it. You're already wealthy enough and you don't require the inheritance. And so a deed of variation is often used to basically skip a generation and move the inheritance down a level. The reason for that primarily is wanting to save inheritance tax. So if we just think of an example there, let's say my parents have died, I've now received the family wealth, but that's now being added to my own assets and my own wealth, and it's causing me an inheritance tax problem. So what I want to do, because I don't really need the money from my parents, is I want to bypass myself and basically give the inheritance to my children. In that example, the grandchildren. So a deed of variation can be used to basically achieve that and change someone's will, so we bypass the original beneficiaries and move it along to another set of beneficiaries that we think it would be better to have it. Now, where are we missing a trick? Because that's the sort of basic way that a deed of variation is applied. But actually, if used properly, a deed of variation can do so much more. Because instead of just kicking the problem down to the next generation and moving the money from me down to my children, actually, if a deed of variation is done properly and we change someone's will to actually now leave their inheritance into trust, we can achieve all of the same inheritance tax savings. We can skip the generation if that's what we want, but we can actually still enjoy the money. And by using the trust, not only have we helped against inheritance tax, but we've also protected that inheritance from things like relationship breakdowns and divorces, care fees, financial difficulty, and bankruptcy. So actually, when a deed of variation is done properly, it can do so much more than simply just skip a generation just to save a little bit of inheritance tax. There are some rules, though, about a deed of variation. So the first thing, obviously, is that in order to agree to a deed of variation, you have to have mental capacity and you have to be over the age of 18. And you do have to do it within 2 years of the date of death. So once that person's died, we've really got 2 years to decide if we're varying their will, what we're varying it to, and make sure that all of that is fully implemented in time. All of the beneficiaries don't have to agree. So if, for example, you've got 2 siblings, one of them wants to do a deed of variation to move their inheritance into trust or to skip a generation and move it down to their children, that's absolutely fine. They can do that for their share of the inheritance. You don't have to have the other beneficiary of the will agree with you or do a deed of variation as well. So they're independent decisions that only you as the original beneficiary can decide if you want to enter into that deed of variation. There's a lot more information on deed of variations. That's just a very short couple of minutes summary. So if you want to know more about deed of variations, how they can be used effectively, on our website we've got a free PDF downloadable brochure which just explains, and it's a bit of an information sheet, it explains more about the deed of variation. And we also cover off deeds of variation actually in action during our wills, trusts and estate planning webinar, which you can watch for free. And we actually look at a real case study of a family and a client who had to use a deed of variation, and we see the really powerful impact that that had. So if you can, check out the webinar as well, and that will give you a lot more information on this area. Hope that answers this question for this week, and I look forward to answering more frequently asked questions with you soon.